Gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Himes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Biggert. I think she's made a constructive and good faith contribution to the debate, something we're seeing a little too little of these days. I will probably not support it for reasons I'll come to in a moment, but I do want to object strenuously to the terms under which the substitute is being supported, and frankly the terms under which this debate is being conducted. Sitting over here, I periodically get the minorities' talking points. It didn't happen today, but it doesn't need to happen because I've heard them over and over and over again, and I want to touch on what I know them to be. The first is, clearly, raise the specter of job losses as a possibility. I want to raise the specter of real job losses. 7.5 million of them, 7.5 million Americans who do not have jobs today, who had them before, not because they didn't have enough freedom, not because there was an overwhelming and obtrusive regulator, but because the financial sector in this country crashed around their ears and brought down the real economy. The second clear talking point is that we're going to raise the cost of credit. That there will be huge costs to be paid by consumers. Well, what about the prospect of the cost that consumers have paid in terms of millions of foreclosures, in terms of bankruptcies in the hundreds of thousands? What about those costs? Is it possible that as a result of this legislation that it might be just a little bit more expensive? It's possible. We don't know. But what about the cost that we have paid, again, not because of an absence of freedom or because of overwhelming regulation, but because the financial services sector crashed around the ears of the American family? We may reduce credit. That's clearly talking point number 3. Well, that's the point of this bill, isn't it? I think we can all agree that we don't want that individual with no income and no job to be offered a mortgage with no strings attached. Let's be honest with each other. There might be, if we do this right, a little bit less credit going in the direction of those who irresponsibly took on credit before. Mrs. Biggert's amendment says, again, good faith, thoughtful amendment, but it says, let's leave those who currently have the tools to do consumer protection. Let's ask them to do it. Folks, we've seen this before. They had those tools. They failed to use them. It strikes me that it would be, at a minimum, imprudent to just say, let's have another go at it. Let's restructure this thing. We had quite a history lesson before we broke for votes. Let me touch on some history that I think is actually really important. And that's what happened in 1933 and 1934. I wasn't here. I was negative 33 years old in 1933. But in 1933, this institution did exactly what it is doing right now, which is it reacted to the devastation in the financial sector, which brought down the real economy, and it said, we're going to recraft the regulations by which the banking sector is governed. And exactly, you read the transcripts, we're seeing exactly the thing. The forces of reaction in the business community said this will end capitalism as we know it, it will destroy the market economy, it will destroy our growth. In fact, the regulations of 1933 and 1934, with which I am intimately familiar, had the effect of contributing to the most powerful period of economic growth in this country's, in fact, in the human experience's history. Why? Because we had transparency, because we had clarity, and because people had faith in this system. That is what we are doing. And I think today, just as in 1933, you will choose a side. You will choose a side. You will choose the side that says we will restore faith in this system and drive economic growth, or you will choose the other side and be left behind by history. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the balance.